Okay, here we go. Thank you all for joining. Obviously, I'm a native English speaker. My Italian is bad and mainly learned on the football pitch because I just took up the sport myself. So probably nothing anybody I should not repeat in a professional setting. So I will not attempt, but I will please ask questions if I say something that's not clear. I tend to use turns of phrase sometimes, and if it needs an explanation or if I am not making sense, then please ask me, and I will do my best. Because as I always say, undoubtedly your English is better than my Italian, so shame on me. But let me know if I'm not being clear. So we're here to talk about clouds and your career journey. Ray sort of brought this up in his talk earlier today, and I thought that was kind of fun that some of the questions that were being asked as he talks about what our vision at VMware is and where we're going. So we're going to talk about the you side of this conference, right? What's in this for you? What you can do if you've got if you either feel like your job will be disrupted or you want to lean forward and look into cloud as a possibility. So who am I and why am I up here? This may be too much of a cultural reference, but does anybody know who Bob Ross is? Is that a familiar? All right. So he was sort of a character on public television in the States, and he was known for painting happy clouds. So what I learned is in Las Vegas, you can hire a Bob Ross lookalike because he is now deceased, but we found the head of the Bob Ross fan club, and that's him in the picture. We did a party about clouds. So better known as Comms Ninja on Twitter, I have done a lot of work in the industry for people on a career journey, on a career path. I was part of a podcast called The Geek Whisperers, which is we don't have any new episodes, but there's 140 episodes. If you're interested, go give it a listen. We've talked to a lot of people in the industry about how they navigated their own career journey. I've also started my career. The first half of my career was in traditional book publishing. I saw Amazon come along, so I know about having my career and the path I'm on disrupted. I actually gave this talk in Seattle at the Seattle VMUG, going into the mall, and there is an Amazon bricks and mortar bookstore. And I think we really have come for full circle. 10 years in publishing, Amazon comes along and sort of eats traditional publishing. I go into technology, Amazon has a bookstore. So everything changes, everything is the same. Okay. So first we'll level set of what is your goal. I can't get through a presentation without a football reference. I think one of the challenges when we set goals in life, and this in particular, is we think first about what's going to stop us from getting there. So yes, is this transition that we're going through as the cloud becomes more and more part of our journey in technology, is it seamless? No. But do I feel confident that everybody here has got all the skills you need to be able to make those pivots, make those changes, score those goals? Absolutely. So this is my way of saying it is never too late to learn new tricks. It is never too late to do things that are hard. So here we go. Yes, it is easy if there's no keeper in the goal, but not so much. My daughter is a goalkeeper. I'm a striker. So this is also very personal for us. Her goal is to stop mine. How many folks here are working with the cloud in some aspect already? Okay, so some familiarity. Other people, do people feel like cloud is coming, it's going to disrupt, or that the industry is changing so that what you're doing today isn't going to be what you're doing tomorrow? Would you say that's true? Pretty disruptive? Okay, so goals. How to get started. Number one, solve a problem. If you are interested in going deeper in the cloud or even just getting started, I think one of the best ways to do it is having your job pay for it, because that's always a win. So if you've got a project at work that you can get somewhere with by looking at it from a cloud perspective, that's a fantastic way to train yourself. So project-based work is in some ways less intimidating than just saying, I'm going to the cloud, I'm going to become a cloud architect, I'm going to, whatever that may be. Set a finite, reachable goal, and that's going to become a lot simpler for you to do the work. And like I said, also having work pay for any of that process, which I think is great. Through this, when I was starting these talks, I asked some questions on Twitter to see what somebody in the industry would say to someone who said, I'd like to get started in cloud, how do I? And we had a lot of really great answers. One thing I liked from Ariel Sanchez, learn the billing and get familiar with each platform's terminology. So anytime you learn something new, I think those are kind of the two key components. You can become more confident in the interview process, in selling the project up, if that's important within your management chain, is understanding what the business impact is from the billing side, and also understanding the language so that you're familiar with the terminology. So, project-based learning. So pick a platform. The other thing that I think is really important here is you don't have to do it all at once. And that's probably those of you who have already gotten started with this. There are different platforms to solve different problems. You don't necessarily have to do everything all at once. Cloud is a guilty marketing buzzword, right? I'm guilty of it. I'm sure we all are. But there's more finite choices within that. So don't feel like you have to do everything at once. Pick one platform that solves the problem at hand. Again, that project-based approach, so that you're not overwhelmed. You could also use the project as a way to compare the platforms, because I think one of the other things that will make everybody more competitive in this space is having knowledge of, I feel like this platform is better for these reasons, right? Anytime we kind of set our religion, if you will, about it, technology aside, and look at the facts, I think that makes us more competitive and it makes it more compelling. All right, another quote from a community member. I really like Scott's approach here, because those who feel fearful that their job is going away forget all that they know already. So this is my reassurance slide, right? You have a lot of information already. You know what you know. This is an approach Scott's taking to learning, where he's taking what he knows, layering on something, layering on something, layering on something. So I think that's an excellent approach as we to get more integrated in cloud. I also like that he's going to sprinkle in some API research, like it's some sort of Parmigiano to go on top. Okay, goal 2, career growth. How many of you have that goal for yourselves? You want to grow in your career, you want to advance. Me too. So one of the great ways to do that is research the jobs and the titles on LinkedIn. If you're not satisfied with your role or your title, go do some research and find out what people that have skill sets you're interested in, or people you admire, or you just think their career looks great. Go find out what they're doing. How do you get there? What's the delta between what you've got on your LinkedIn page and what you feel confident in and what they're doing? Because maybe you've got 70% of it now, but maybe you retitle yourself. That's a great trick I've used many times. Give yourself the right title on LinkedIn if you're in an active job search, because then people find you as what you're aspiring to be and not just what you've done. Clean up your LinkedIn. If you don't have an identifiable picture, and I feel like Italians have such great aesthetic sense. We in the States could take a page out of your book, so you're probably, no one in here is guilty of this. But if you don't have a picture where you're identifiable, and it's not from your cousin's wedding where somebody's arms, like cut off, like make sure you get a nice identifiable picture, and make sure you're looking like a confident person that they would want to engage, not like you're getting ready to sell them something. That's just good advice anyway, even if you're in sales. I always tell my sales audiences, have you not had those? I'm in marketing, so I get pitched all the time, like they can fix all my problems, people on LinkedIn. And they like, oh, let's link. And then like, Amy, would you like my list of names? No, I do not wish to buy your list of names. We don't even know each other's last names yet. So make sure that your LinkedIn page is showing you as an authority, not as like, a pushy salesperson. All right, here's the controversial one. I picked this one up from an audience member at AWS when I went to reInvent. Go on an interview once a year. How many of us have been in a job role for quite a long time, and maybe our interview skills are rusty, right? No one has to know. It's free testing your knowledge, because if you've gone and done some training courses, if you've done some learning, what better way to see if you know the terms, if you can pass, so to speak, and if you're ready, than going on an interview? Absolutely free of charge. You can be serious about it, you can be not, but you can find out what you know. And the other thing that's good to remember is when you go in the interview process, especially in technical roles, chances are good that you know a lot more about the technology than the first person you'll talk to. You'll probably get deeper in the interview process, and someone may match your knowledge. But if you're coming in the door, it's really important that you know the right words to impress that first gatekeeper. So it's a great early test. Or maybe it's a friend or mentor, and you're just sort of having a conversation. It's a good way to keep those skills sharp. The last one, which skills, it helps teach you which skills are institutional knowledge versus which are market skills. Does that make sense? If you've been in a job long enough, I right now have learned that my skill at VMware, I've only been there 2 years, but I picked up these quirky how things work skills. So people, it's not my job description. Hey, Amy knows how to onboard contractors. I don't think that's going to appear on my LinkedIn, but I know how to navigate the HR systems because I've had to hire several people. So that's a weird one. Does that mean I'm ready to go into an HR career or be someone who's a hiring manager? No. It means I've got institutional knowledge, not that I have the training to go take that into a career. So going on that interview helps you distinguish those things. We're all guilty of it, and it's hard. If you've been at a place a long time, you may say, I really know how this particular stack or system works. It could be that you know how it works at that corporation. But is that really what the industry standard is, or is that a quirky or unique situation? It's a great way to figure out which is which. Institutional knowledge is great, particularly if you're looking for a new role within the company. It can be transferable, but make sure that that maps to what market skills are and what's considered valuable. Okay, are you familiar with the term job security? Right? My thought about job security is you have to be careful not to be that guy. Because my issue with job security, it's great, but you can't have it be because what you're doing is too complicated to explain to somebody else, right? Job security is in some ways not in your hands, it's in somebody else's hands. And job security certainly shouldn't be being the person who makes it so complicated nobody else can figure it out. So I prefer the term job insurance because that's something you're in charge of. Job security, the markets could change, something could be out of your hands. But job insurance is something you pay into your own system, your own account, so to speak. So, what makes you stand out? Could you answer that question if I went Oprah Winfrey and came into the audience and asked everybody? What makes you unique? If you carry a job role title that's an industry standard title, how is your cloud architect title different from the next person's cloud architect title? How will you help that recruiter or even somebody within your company decide that you get the promotion? What makes you stand out? And I think there are two ways, technically, and we'll talk some more through this about specific resources to get into cloud for people who are entering or want to go a little deeper, but also business-wise, which I will talk about in just a minute, about how do you distinguish yourself from a business perspective. So more on both of those items. Okay, invest in your future consistently. How many people, you're here today, so that's one, right? You come to your VMUG. How many people are guilty of working too much, too long, too late, and barely keeping enough time for themselves, right? I was going to say in America, we're forever guilty of we don't work out or spend enough time with our families. In Italy, it seems that food is a good focus. I'm a very food-motivated person, so hopefully food is not set aside. We are always working through lunch. I hope that does not happen here. My cultural read is it doesn't. So I'd like to please don't tell me that's not true. I would like to think everyone here has a nice, relaxed, delicious lunch and doesn't eat at McDonald's every day. Probably shouldn't say that, but there we go. So make sure you're investing in yourself consistently. So this is great, but what are you going to do tomorrow and with this knowledge? And what else can you do? Put an appointment on your calendar if you have to. Make time for yourself to invest in this. And it can be virtually, it can be in person. Maybe an hour a week is your research time or your lab time, Or maybe if you've got a long commute, you listen to a podcast that's helping you learn something new. But make it religious, just like you would make time to go to the gym or spend time with family or watch whatever television show, or in my case, watch a lot of football. Make sure that it's on your calendar and stick to it. Make that really important, because so often I hear people who are the number one person at their job, and then something changes and it's not their fault. They were the best. But again, this is what you can control, not what market forces change. So that's not trying to be, oh, scary, the world's going to end. It's just make sure you give yourself something, grow in your own career, because nobody's going to do that for you. Build community before you need it. That's my other big one. Again, things happen, jobs change. If you've always worked so hard and been that person, and you don't even know the name of the person in the cube next to you, or like one data center over, if you will, how are you going to ask them for help when you need it, when it's an emergency? Oh my gosh, my company just shut down, right? I need a new job. True story, when I was 23 and my first ever business travel trip, I went to a publishing conference on the West Coast. I'm from the East Coast of the States. I went to the West Coast. So there we are, a time before there are even cell phones. And unknown to any of us, our company got bought. So I worked for a computer publishing company. It got purchased. Like, they were shutting it down. Like, that day, there we are at the conference with our $50 on the trade floor, bright-eyed me. And I'm like, this is, how am I getting home? Thank goodness I have the return ticket. Like, I'm going home and I have no job. You don't ever want to feel that way, that you have no choices. So it is worth taking your time. It is worth connecting. I know these guys have done such a great job putting this conference on together. There's such an opportunity. Take time to get to know somebody you don't. Take time to do this virtually. I am a big advocate for Twitter, even as just a listening mechanism, but it is a great way to kind of get to know who the people are around you and in your community, in your broader community. Make sure you have an idea of the other companies that do things that you find that are interesting in your geographic location. Or if you've got a skill that's more global, make sure you understand who the players are in that marketplace and get to know people, not just the companies. Get to know somebody there, because nothing's worse than needing community and not having any. Okay. I felt this one was a universal one too. Here's my other lecture. I definitely grew up in the days of shadow IT. I worked at Cisco, and we had what we called the repo depot. And it would be like all these parts of things, and and I am again guilty, you'd build a server and you'd hide it in a closet. So you'd just see like cable and power going into a closet, like that nobody quite used. And maybe I did or didn't run some marketing programs off of these rogue servers, right? We probably came of age in a time of shadow IT. There is no shadow IT anymore, right? With the cloud, that's the other big disruptor. So if your job is predicated on keeping people from a service, I'm asking you to kind of change how you think. There is no more shadow IT. There's no more people walking around us to do illegal things. Swipe a credit card, off they go. So it is in all of our best interest to understand the ramifications that this hybrid cloud approach offers. One credit card, it's out of our control. So I love something Ray said, for those of you at the keynote: if you're interested in security, you will always have a job. Because the other story I like to tell, we'll go on to the next one. The other story I like to tell, Bruce Davey, who is a CTO out of Australia, talks about, he's one of the OG, original kind of networking guys, right? And he's like, as a network engineer, you want to solve problems. So they told us, connect everything. And we did it. Woohoo, we're successful, right? He goes, there were 12 devices when we pulled that off. He goes, now there's like 12 billion plus. So security has shifted and has become everybody's concern. So that actually leads us nicely into the technical tune-up. I told you there's a couple ways to differentiate yourself. So instead of being the person who causes friction and says, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do this, think about what you can do to tune up your skills, to learn more, to become an IT person who removes friction. And think about the different value proposition. I'm sure no one in this room is that person, the Department of No, but you've probably worked with that person before, right? How can you be the person on the team who helps solve the problems and remove the friction? Because yes, we always get the last minute asks, the impossible. It is hard, but tuning up your technical skills and thinking about, we live in a world where shadow IT is not possible. If we say no, somebody might swipe a card and go do something that's even worse for the overall infrastructure, right? And not good for the business. So becoming aware of how to say yes and doing it in the way that you want makes you very powerful and distinguishes you as a technologist. How does traditional architecture map to cloud architecture? I think the other thing is figuring out what you do know and how to get to where you want to go. So don't assume that everything you know is wrong. If you've had, how many people are 5 years plus into technology careers? So all fairly seasoned bunch, right? So you've learned some things already. This is not, the cloud is coming does not mean we all have to forget everything we know or common sense. It's a matter of what do you know and how does it map to this new set of skills? Understand security. So back to that original story. In a world where security used to be by that one person, right, who you didn't want to talk to at a cocktail party because they made you paranoid about everything you did, that's all of us now. We all have a role to play in keeping data, privacy, et cetera, secure. Europe has certainly led the way in a lot of this. I'm accepting cookies right and left. I have to sign, going into the Marriott, I had to sign lots of things, just to allow them to communicate with me. In States, we don't do that yet. We're going to get there. You guys are leading the way. But we have to understand security. We have to understand what that means. Knowing that will distinguish you. I think Ray was spot on. That should be on a t-shirt. If you're interested in security, you will always have a job. And it doesn't mean you have to be the hardcore security person. Understand how it impacts your role, particularly as pertains to cloud. Practice. And again, we'll get to some more useful tips on how and when to do this, but practice, practice, practice. The nice thing about the cloud is you're more able to enter that space more easily and try things than you don't have to have a data center running in your basement, for instance, to be able to practice and have a sandbox. You too can swipe a card and set up an environment and practice and test things. I do happen to have a data center running in my basement. My boyfriend's a network engineer. It's what every girl has dreamed of, having, cable in her basement. Okay. Speaking of languages, we all know my fluency is limited, but learn a new language. If you're not confident in the language of business, you can be the smartest person in the room technically, but you will distinguish yourself if you understand what that means for the business. How many of you are guilty of knowing the answer to a problem, getting really technical, and watching maybe a C-level person glaze over as you talk to them? I've seen it happen. I've had those interviews, and you can see it they tune out. If you become the person they knows how to do it better than anyone technically, but you can translate that, like the Rosetta Stone, from what you know to what is important to them, you're going to be a very viable candidate for any role. Are you fluent in healthcare or finance? The other thing is, don't forget the advantages you have if you're in a particular vertical. So if you're looking to change roles or increase in your role, think about what knowledge you have in any particular vertical space. Every business is in the IT business. This is also something Ray said this morning, right? I had a conversation with someone, I don't know what you guys call them, flip-flops is what we call them, like those little stands in the mall. Like, they're in the IT business. Is that not crazy? Growing up, that was just like that one little store that maybe your job in high school to sell the flip-flops in the mall. That's in the IT business now, right? There is no industry that isn't affected by IT. So you have a lot more opportunities. You are the hero of the day. Learning how to speak the language of the business is going to guarantee a job forever. Okay, can you communicate what you know? How many people feel like they are an expert at PowerPoint or public speaking? Or how many people feel like that's something they'd like to work on? I think we can all get better, right? I don't know if you have that here, but in the States we have something called Toastmasters. There's often like a club or some sort of opportunity to train in speaking Think about what that is. It doesn't even have to be in technology. Maybe you have a different passion. Maybe you're into food or sports, or there can be a group that you could get together and present on. And again, maybe take what you get paid for out of it and think about a passion or something that would make it fun to practice, and practice presenting to other people. See how well you communicate things you're passionate about and that you know. Work on your PowerPoint. Think about what you do. Whiteboarding. So this is the other thing I've noticed. Most engineers I know are excellent at whiteboarding, right? But maybe we're taught that that isn't the right way to communicate in these business high-level settings. I would disagree. If you have an opportunity and you want to convey something complex, go to your skill set. Make that the Rosetta Stone that transitions between what you know and what you're really comfortable with. It is an old speaker's trick to have something in your hand, because if you get nervous on stage, there's some and again, I always tease, I have a very good friend who's Italian, and I was like, oh, you talk with your hands. So your hands are busy, you're fine, but it gives you confidence to hold something. So if you're in a meeting that makes you nervous and you want to communicate better, think about using what you know. And whiteboarding can be a great opportunity. All right, does anybody know Marie Kondo? Has she made it over here yet? Do you know? She's on Netflix. She's a neatness freak, and she has this phrase called, does it spark joy? You aren't supposed to keep any possession in your house. It's a minimalism kind of movement. You aren't supposed to keep things in your house that don't spark joy. So none of this should feel like I'm asking you to take medicine or do something terrible. Think about what it is that you're interested in, particularly as pertains to the cloud. If you've got project-based work, that sparks joy, that makes you curious and makes you want to move forward. Resources, a cloud guru. Highly recommended. Every time I talk about them, I have Siri on my phone. And speaking of security, I'm getting a lot of ads from a cloud guru. They are listening closely to me. And they've promised me that I'll make 10% more if I take some of their training. So it's pretty compelling. But anyway, there's a lot of free services with a cloud guru. Check them out. And they're pretty platform agnostic. So you can check, and maybe you've got some expertise in one platform, but not another. So great resource. Highly recommend giving that a look. Coursera, again, lots of great courses. LinkedIn, like I said, don't forget that that's a resource for you to do research on, to figure out what you know, what you don't know, how people are talking about it, and what people see as valuable. Podcasts, vExperts. I know these guys can certainly talk to you about the benefits of those various programs and why you might want to get involved. Opportunities to speak and learn more. Lots of podcasts. Cloudcast, Datanauts. I actually heard a couple people mention today. Geek Whispers, a little self-indulgent, but that is about career journey. And there's another podcast that just came out called Real Job Talk. I particularly like episode 2. There are several great episodes that help you kind of listen and learn about what you want to do in the career journey. Let's see if this one will play for us. This is the other kind of football. And this is my recommendation. This is why you want to plan ahead. They're playing musical chairs, and I like to think of that guy, number 21, as like the mainframe guy. Like, he's like, I'm fine, look at me. I do this one thing that's still necessary. I've got my chair. And you can get and keep that job as the mainframe guy until one mainframe guy wants your job more than you. So be the best at what you're doing, but think about what's coming next. Probably none of us came into this because we weren't curious and we didn't like to learn things. So the cloud is coming. Workloads are shifting. You can do what you need to do to get the next job, to get the promotion, to distinguish yourself. So it doesn't have to be a frightening thing. You just want to make sure not to be that guy. What is it? Padded soccer, as you would call it. My British friends say. All right. It's kind of mesmerizing. We could sit and watch that. Questions. Does anybody have any questions, thoughts? Or I'm going to jump down off here. There's like 4 people here. Let's just get on. I don't like... Oh, did that cut me off? No. Are you inspired to get out there and cloud as a verb?
If I can just add something to what you just
said.
So
please.
Basically, about the practicing.
Yeah.
And basically, even in these big events like today, we had a lot of community speaking. And Emmy, of course, is one of them, but she's a professional. She's doing this for a long time. But we also have some people presenting for the first time today. So my message is everyone here and outside here can be a community speaker at any event. You don't have to be a super guru expert on whatever. You just present your experience. We have some examples here. So you just present some very, I can say, simple environment you just worked on, some idea you brought to completion. It's fun, yes, and it can be a starting point for your career, or maybe, it can put you in a position where you are maybe more visible, more respected, more acknowledged as an expert.
Because when you see people listening to you, you understand you have something to say.
That's a lot of conversation about imposter syndrome. I don't know if that translates,
Yep.
but people saying, and I had a couple people on the Geek Whisperers who talked about that, and they were very well-known names, and they said, I have to remind myself when I'm speaking, they've asked me to be here, and I'm the one who knows the most about the subject right now. And like you said, it does give you a certain confidence the more you practice. You know what you know, you say what you know, and then that gives you opportunity. I'm from a small town in North Carolina, and I get to come here and engage and make videos and do things. It has changed my life personally in engaging and doing some of exactly what I'm talking about on a different track than your own. But these things work. Practicing and taking a chance, it pays out big benefits.
And we're constantly looking for new speakers. Okay, so we're on the hunt.
So what he's saying is he's going to be taking names at the door.
Yes. So
Is always the best teacher.
Yeah. Yes.
When I'm looking about on my first time that I speak on VMUGIT, and I said, oh, it's terrible. Now for me, it's terrible. But go better every time. Every time, you can more confident. You can do defend better. Okay, so start.
Everyone has stage fright.
Every marathon starts with the first.
And one thing you discover is that actually the same problems you face every day are the same for everybody. So there is always, this kind of big guru coming from somewhere else, speaking about the future and all visionary things, but you don't have to be that. You can just share your experience, very low level, very simple, very everyday experiences. But many of the people in the room may benefit from that.
For our meeting, the experience of every day is what we want. We want people finding the experience of every day. So if you do a little thing, but it's important for someone, you can do the best if you share it. Okay, so
Let's have that be the challenge. See what you can do this week to share something. You're off the hook because you already presented.
Yeah.
So you get a free hall pass, but see if you can meet somebody new and share something you know, and see how it goes. Take an action. Yeah. Yep. I can sit down. We can. Yeah.
Yes, act professional. I'm not used to. So, yeah.
It's practice, right?
Yeah,
It's microphone training.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Question for you. It happened to me. I'm quite young, so I have not that great experience in the work field. But it happened to me. I think we all are technical guys, and it happened to me. I wanted to change completely my field. I mean, maintaining the same thing like pre-sales things or just presenting, changing your job radically. And I think it feels frustrating sometimes because you don't have the chance to do it in your own company.
Yep.
And looking around, you don't have the chance to move on a different job because
They want you to have the experience, but nobody will give
that's
you a
the
chance.
thing, and you don't know how to gain it.
Yeah.
Maybe you can help us, I don't know, with some suggestion, or maybe...
So in terms of, and make sure I understand the question. So you want to change your career radically in terms of you want to get this kind of speaking experience so that
Yes,
you can
exactly.
get like a
maybe
management
more like
role.
a pre-sales, having
Got it.
to deal with clients, facing them, and yeah.
So
Not just-
honestly, the number one way I've seen people hop more easily, it is the old, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So I think that figuring out like who has that career, who could be a mentor for you in that is one way to do it. And I always say your boss should not be your mentor, because you need a mentor who you can, if you have a problem with your boss, you need someone who can help you kind of understand, because that would be a great question for a mentor of like, how else can I gain this specific set of experience? My boss is not great about giving
Yeah,
me
sure,
other
sure.
opportunities. So I think researching it a little bit, seeing who does what you know, seeing if you can get to know someone who knows how to do that. Ask to shadow, ask kind of like a day in the life. So getting some, because you're right, you have to have somebody take a chance on you to be the first time that you have that job. And so if it's done where someone trusts you and they're like, well, you're a reliable person, you're a hardworking person, you show up, you know your technology, then they're more likely to say we can train for the rest of it. I know it's like kind of standard advice, but
No,
I
no,
think
it helps.
I think knowing people, that has also made the biggest difference for me. Is a lot of times I get asked about like how do you go up on a leadership, because like if you're a manager and you become a director, somebody's got to take a chance, because some of those job descriptions are like you have to be a director for 100 years. We're not even old enough to have the yeah. So knowing somebody who knows that you have these other solid qualities will usually help you make that pivot.
Okay, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Working internally with focus point is for having the chance to fly to another field.
I agree, like doing both, because I think it's important to have mentors inside your company, but it is worth that extra energy to see who you know. And these are great opportunities because there's so many companies present to find people outside the company, because that also helps you balance. Some companies are better at taking risks, often like earlier, depends on what they need. If they need to ramp up quickly, that's an opportunity to change jobs if they've got a lot of job openings versus if everyone's had it forever. So that'll give you a pulse on where people are more likely to take risks like that and hire unknown talent. Absolutely.